Okay, my reflections on the last unit. Chapter 20 was really not my cup of tea. Didn't really inform you much. Chapter 21 and 22 were actually right on point. They really culminate all of the previous units quite well and are very 21 and 22 are very practically based. It's more how to use the things in the previous chapters in the classroom. Chapter 21 is curriculum in a brain-based educational classroom. It includes not only getting across the lessons you're trying to get across, whether that's in history, math, English, or whatever, but there's also the other things you have to teach the kids to make them well-rounded. And in teaching and showing these other things, the lessons in your topic take hold a little better. There's elements like social fluency that need to be included, appreciating diversity, using the correct language skills for the topic, identifying and being accepting of other religions and other peoples. There's conflict resolution and teamwork, things that make a complete good student. Excuse me. There's personal development, teaching the kids how to deal with stress, keeping them physically fit. I know as a math guy, we have a bad habit of not keeping ourselves fit by eating healthy and exercising. We have a bad habit of holding ourselves up in a room and just cranking out math. Well, by little do we know and do we realize that that's not really suiting us, and we can't work to our optimum if we're not healthy and we're not fit. So making sure the kids get some exercise and that they eat well, and stress how these things will help them in their chosen field path. Teaching them how to set and then achieve their goals, and then celebrating those achievements and those goals that they've made. Teaching them how to continue to learn, which is something that a normal human being should do throughout their lives, whether it's continued education in their topic of choice, or even something just completely different. It keeps the brain firing. New synapses are firing. New dendrites are being made. New connections. New tools are being learned that you can apply to your career topic, your career field, your career period, and your life. Teaching them about personal responsibility, personal accountability. I know going into teaching high school, which I'm going to be, these kids are going to be, they're pretty much adults by the time they're in high school, and teaching them that there's not going to be anybody, when they get out in the world, there's not going to be anybody to hold their hand anymore. That they're going to be responsible for turning in their rent or their mortgage payment, paying their utilities, getting to work on time, waking up on time, making sure that they eat right, making sure that they get enough exercise. This is personal accountability, and all of these things can be taught within the high school environment. And I'm speaking on high school because I don't plan on teaching middle school or elementary school. Teaching them artistic expression should be also included in the curriculum. People would think that math majors aren't particularly artistic, but some of the best musicians and artists that I know personally, in fact, two of my greatest teachers, Dr. Thrawn at Texas A&M and Mr. Gracia over at Temple College, were both fantastic musicians. Fantastic musicians. Music just kind of lends itself to mathematics, and mathematics lends itself to music. We are artistic. We may not be able to draw a straight line without the aid of a ruler, but we have other ways of expressing ourselves. There's also writing, storytelling, dance, sculpture, sports. I've always been an athlete most of my life, and athletics was the way that I expressed my frustration and how I got my frustration out or my anger out. It also helped fuel that competitiveness within me, which I try to take with me when I go into the classroom to learn or to teach. I mean, I want to be the best student. I want to be the best teacher. I practice archery, and I noticed that the more I practice, the more focused I am. Archery is all about focus and omitting the distractions so that you can, quote unquote, be the arrow. And whenever I do that on a regular basis, even if I were to go play soccer on a regular basis, I notice that the rest of my academic activities are much better. There's also teaching the kids how to look up information and problem solve. I've got 4 kids. None of them know how to look up something. None of them know how to use a phone book or to Google information. And that's actually kind of a shame. I'm having to teach them how to do that. I'm having to teach them to solve a problem, we have to have information. Let's go find the information. So taking all that into account, we have to plan a curriculum that addresses all of these things. Now, yes, me being a math teacher, there's not going to be much teaching of cultural and religious diversity. But there are going to be people of other religions and other ethnicities in my classroom. And I need to teach them that everybody's the same. Their heritage may be different, but that's all it is. Different. It's not wrong. It's not right. It's just different. We shouldn't shun what we don't know. There is also a process when you're teaching your particular topic. There's a quite scientific process in teaching it that will get the best results. You have to pre-expose them to it. This is what we're going to look at next week. It's kind of cool. Then you have to give sufficient, after that there's a sufficient amount of time that needs to go by between the pre-exposure and the actual learning to allow the brain to kind of process what might be happening. This also allows them to feel a little bit relaxed when you finally do hit them with the new stuff. They're not quite so nervous about it. I know for me, whenever I'm going to any new situation, I want as much information as possible when I go in. That way I'm not anxious, nervous, reactive when I finally approach that new situation. Then there has to be an amount of time to give them the new material. 15, 20, 30 minutes. That's the instruction time. Today we're going to learn about square roots, and we talk about it for the next 15, 20, 30 minutes. And during this time, there's no feeling of threat. There's no feeling of the teacher forcing it down their throats. It is a very hand-holding kind of experience. Hey, I want you to take my hand. I'm going to show you something new. There's nothing to be afraid of, and I'm going to be right here. And we're going to work through this together. No big deal. If you lower that threat, you lower their anxiety, and their brain reacts and is more willing to accept that information. After the learning, after the homework, when they've had time to practice what they've learned, before an assessment to see how well they've absorbed the material, there has to be a good review time. There has to be that confidence building time. We're going to review this. I'm pretty sure you all have it. I'm going to show you that you all have it. And all of these things, the pre-exposure, the teaching time, the review, is all involved. We're involved with one another. The teacher is involved with the student's involved with the other student. Everybody's doing this together. We're doing this together through this. That will foster a sense of community in them, foster a sense of acceptance of diversity also. Then there's also being supportive from the teacher. I know you can do this. I know you can do this. Throughout, I know with mathematics, sometimes throughout teaching, there are several ways to get to the right answer. And everybody, every mathematician, every person, all have different ways of getting to the same result. There's nothing wrong with that. None of the paths taken are wrong, as long as they end up at the right point. Throughout this process, there needs to be challenge. Not so much challenge that they get frustrated and ticked off at it, but challenge enough to make them think, and then achieve a little goal and feel happy about it. And then you have to have some downtime. There's got to be that time where you turn your brain off and you watch silly cat videos on the computer and you laugh your brain off for about 30 minutes. Or play video games, or play soccer, or, ride a motorcycle. Whatever you do to get away. And then in chapter 22 is about testing, and how the current methods of testing are just not accurate. There's too much stress, there's too much tension, and there's a better way to do that. Now then, how we institute these changes, I don't know. It just seems too time consuming. It talks about authentic, it looks at the quality of the learning. Do they know the content? What are their emotions about the content? What is the context of the content? How does the student draw a logical conclusion? I give you this, I give you this, I give you this. Does it mean this? What does it mean? And support your answer. And then there's trying to assess how the student has taken what you've taught them and incorporated it into their life. I realize that this is a more inclusive and qualitative assessment of the student, sure. I've given you a tool. Show me how you use it. I fully get that. But how we incorporate this, I don't know. It's almost like there's just too much stuff to test on. And the tests are way more personalized. And I don't really see how that's going to be implemented in a public school setting. Chapter 23, I had some personal issues with. I'm going to admit I haven't really learned too much from this class because all of the principles that were taught of in this class, I learned in a class called TECA 1354. It's pretty much the same class, except instead of being applied to just little kids as in 1354, this is applied to all kids. Kindergarten through K-12 and beyond. Most of the things that were spoken of in this class, I have come to realize myself throughout my collegiate career. Let's admit, when we're all high school students and middle school students, we don't really think about ourselves. Well, we think about ourselves, but we're not very aware. Why did I do this? Why did this happen? We don't really sit down and think about it. I know that during my college career, I did sit down and think about it. And I came to some conclusions. This is the atmosphere I need to learn in. This is the type of teacher I need. This is the downtime I need. I need to make sure that I'm fit. I need to make sure that I'm healthy. I need to make sure that I have these distractions when I'm not studying to let my brain go. I know that I shouldn't go for 4 hours doing math, because then I'm just utterly exhausted, and then I don't want to look at math for a week. I know that there's a certain amount of time I need for learning, a certain amount of time I need for practicing, and a certain amount of time I need for review. My practicing time is much more than others, because I am not a natural mathematician. What I glean of mathematics has come through sheer dogged determination and a workaholic attitude. I can't get by with 10 exercises on a particular type of math. I have to do 100. You can show me what it means all you want, but until I start to see the pattern of how it goes, I'm not going to get it. So I know that my practice time needs to be a little bit longer. I know that I can't eat a whole bunch of carbs, I can't eat a whole bunch of bread, I can't eat a whole bunch of sweet, because then I just feel terrible. And then I don't want to study. I want to distract myself. I'm tired because I'm crashing. But if I take care of myself, I eat high protein, low carb, I get out and get some exercise, I shoot archeries, I play soccer, whatever. I know that I do better in my academics, in my job, in my life. I treat my kids better. I treat my wife better. I treat my job better. I treat everything better. So, back to chapter 23. Chapter 23 actually seemed to be a little bit dogmatic and trying to inspire the reader of this book, whether it's another teacher or somebody else, to, fan the flames of revolution and let's start a brain-based education revolution across the country. And honestly, I took offense to it. I took offense to chapter 23. Are all of the things in the book good? Yes. Should they be done? Yes. But I don't want you to tell me that. I need to come to that conclusion on my own. Is it important enough for me to start a revolution and for me to start change? Or is it something that I can implement in my own little classroom and have great results and then hopefully people will catch on. Don't try to inspire me to start a revolution. That is completely unnecessary. If I feel that it's a revolution that should be started, well then by golly I'll do it. But don't tell me I should have to do it. And then, so the chapter 23 to me was just a complete and utter dogmatic, propagandized, pile of trash, honestly. I didn't agree with the tone of the chapter. I didn't. It almost had this feel of, if you don't do this, then you're not a teacher. You know? So yes, I took offense to chapter 23. And that's it. That's it. Chapter 21 and 22 were probably the best chapters in this book. I will admit. They were the most informative. They were the most practical. The rest of the book gave us a whole bunch of really good stuff, and gave us tips. Yeah, do this. Yeah, do that. But, I mean, okay, how do I work all of this into my classroom, into planning my lessons, into planning the curriculum for the year? Which is more mandated by the state than the local teachers. How do I get the most out of my kids? And chapter 21 and 22 really brought it home. Those were two chapters that I know that I will refer to in my career. Chapter 23, I've thought about ripping out of the book and sending it back to the author. But, other than that was the only thing I really had contention with in this whole book, was chapter 23. I don't like propaganda. I don't like being preached to. Don't try to wrap me up in your army. Let me come to that conclusion on my own. Anyway, that's Unit 5. Thank you.